Let's see here. We have our stream chat. This is Tabletop Terrors, and I'm trying to do something from my office, and I don't know if you guys can see, guys and girls can see. The first thing I can see is that it looks like the chat is not working properly. So that was the first thing. Let's see here. Second thing, so the chat is supposed to be there. The other thing is, I don't know if this is even streaming. Let's check it. Let's check. Nothing heals the past like time. Nothing feels. Let's see here. I don't see it. Uh-oh. Well, we'll see. We'll see if anybody pops in. I can't see. I'll check on Facebook as well. I might just use my phone because I don't want it to derail everything. I really wanted to set up the live stream, but it doesn't. Oh, maybe I am live on Facebook. Yeah, hey, I'm live on Facebook, and 6 people are watching. Here's the problem. The problem is I can't see all the chats because I've improperly set up my chat widget. So I'm going to stay live, and we are going to figure this out together. All right, so if anybody... Man, I thought I had it figured out. So here's the chat widget. Chat. No, that is a chat box. What's the difference? Huh. I don't know. Let's go. All right, so Facebook, we're live. YouTube. It doesn't look like we're live on YouTube. So maybe I broke that. Oh, I am live on YouTube, which means I'm also live on Twitch, which means I'm also live on Twitter. So, what I'll do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to jump from chat to chat. Let's do that. And, listen, it would figure that the awesome person who cuts my grass, I'm just going to jump, is going to is going to cut it right now while I'm live. All right. Okay, so some people are talking about the art. The art is from Hanker and Furnail. This is actually a piece of art for Uldane, the twisted, sort of bleak-ridden landscape of Uldane. And so that is very, very recent. Hank finished that yesterday. That's not even the most recent one. He'll probably be upset that I shared that one. I just grabbed one from the chat. What's going on? Harry P. Hey, Michael Maitland is here. And Rowan Badwar. We have some people in the Facebook live chat as well. Drake Warren, good afternoon. Dwayne Wild, grass needs to be cut. It's a good thing. Ken Napper, live to the 4th power. And Grant Garrison, oh, live to the 4th power. Grant Garrison says, YouTube is old hat. No one watches YouTube videos anymore. Says the billions of views a minute. So, the hashtag and the reason for the difference in what this is titled today is it's sort of like a Daily Damage, but what we're going to do is we are going to work together and we are going to... Sorry. Dwayne Wild said in the chat, did you just say Harry P? So Harry Pollitt of Two Guys T&D is in the YouTube chat. And so while I did say Harry P, I meant Harry P, which is a strange thing to say. So AbTab Creates is what I am doing today. And what that's related to is we are part of an independent tabletop RPG publisher known as Absolute Tabletop, and we have a Facebook group. And so our Facebook group is doing a creative weekend called AbTab Creates. Now, the only way that the only thing you need to do to participate in this is just create something and use the hashtag AbTabCreates. This is a very informal but group-wide focused weekend to create things and to basically just devote mind share and intent to the things that are bouncing around in your head that you should make. I make comments like this all the time, but I want to read the book that you haven't written yet, or I want to watch the movie that you haven't written yet. And so that's what this is about. I think National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, is awesome. But I've made the comment as well that if the only time you express love for your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever is on your anniversary, then you won't have a relationship that has longevity. And if the only time I expressed to my daughter that I was really happy that she was around was on her birthday, I don't think that she would be very happy. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that National Novel Writing Month is a really cool devoted effort, but I think sometimes we wait until November or whenever it is to start thinking of what we're going to write. My suggestion is, and that's what I want to focus on in these sorts of streams, you should be drip feeding your ideas and get something creative prepared so that when National Novel Writing Month comes around in November, all you're doing is writing. You have the idea, you know what you want to do, and you get through a draft. I think that's one of the reasons why National Novel Writing Month is awesome, but I also think that it should just be one focused piece in a very large strategy. Now, let's see here. Nathan Kaplan, Facebook was late with the notifications as usual. Oh, that's a bummer. Dwayne Wild says, be in constant creation mode. Exactly. Hey, Mary. Mary is here. So I'm going to jump back and forth to Facebook and YouTube. Hey, Heavenly Hit Points, what's going on? So I want to create something today, and we are working on our book, A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. That's our campaign setting we're going to be releasing here. But in addition to that, I also wanted to throw it to the chat and basically brainstorm. If you have something that you're stuck on or something that you want to brainstorm, drop it in the chats and let's work on it together. Sometimes just talking to another human being about it is all you need. Or even having to organize the thought enough to put it into writing makes you think about it in a way that is all you need. So let's do this. Mary says, I should give my stories more attention. They've been on the back burner with art and music. And there's nothing wrong with art and music, but yeah, maybe this is a good weekend to just do what we call at Absolute Tabletop, ginger between sushi. Sushi being your major projects. Sometimes you have to cleanse your palate and focus on something else. I know something that I want to throw out there, something that I'm working on, totally just verbally, which is when I'm driving my daughter to and from school, we tell stories, and I'm teaching her just to create and to be active and just to tell stories. And so one of the things that we're working on is it's Tootla the Unicorn and Switchbee. And so it's Tootla and Switchbee. Switchbee is a piece of a magic tree that can transform into anything. And Tootla is a unicorn. And so we just tell these stories. And I use them as parables. I teach my daughter things through these stories. But I also want her to just fearlessly create. And so that's something that I'm doing because I've got to come up with little plots that sometimes they're nonsensical and fun, but every once in a while I'll throw an actual nugget in there of something that I want to teach my daughter. Brian Malone, whoa, didn't even realize there was a live chat today. So I'm actually doing this for a creative weekend. We're doing the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. So there normally isn't on Saturdays, but I figured this would be a really cool special event. Nathan Kaplan, now I want sushi. Feels bad, man. I am going to have sushi for lunch, coincidentally. Dwayne Wild says, creating... Man, can I see this entire chat stream? This is kind of garbage. I just want to see it all, and it's cutting it off. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. Fearless creation. I like it. Creating that... Oh, my God, I'm not reading that. Back over to YouTube. Heavenly Hit Points. I entirely homebrew D&D. I won't comment on that, but I'm stuck. I can't figure out a day or night cycle system. Is that a thing in regular D&D? I could use some help on that. All right, I will help you on that. Michael M. Multitasking during AbTab Create. Need a better title for my 1+1 shot. Currently, I'm calling it Precious Cargo. I love it. I love it. I would just stick with Precious Cargo. Synopsis. Heroes are hired to escort a merchant through the wilds. Here's why I love it. And there are a few really creative people who they just use what it is. I know Precious Cargo seems pretty like, oh, well, that's not the most cool thing ever. But do you know what it does? It immediately lets me know what it's about, and I'm in. Precious Cargo. Ooh, what's the cargo? It raises questions. So I would say stick with that or something close to it. We can brainstorm that as well. Natos for Unlife says, is there a way not involving Facebook to get access to the Discord? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, I'm trying to think of the best way to get it to you. If you email absolutetabletop@gmail.com, we will then return a link to the Discord some point today. I won't do it during the stream, but Michael M says, ends up that the merchant is transporting something different than expected. See, that's awesome. Also high. So we have a day or night cycle, and then a session title for a one-shot title, and then getting somebody into the Discord. Let's check Facebook. Let's see here. That's funny because I've decided I should work on my drawing more. And that's perfect, Brian. Maybe this is your ginger. I doodled a character last night in a few minutes, and I thought, I'm actually decent at this. Yeah, honestly, get great at it. Spend more time. You know, that'd be awesome. And Grant Garrison, my very good friend, who has a sick brand new Kia Soul, like turbo orange. I want to ride in this thing. He actually posted an image to I got a screen share. Precious Cargo. All right. That was perfect. Grant, I love that. All right, so let's talk about Heavenly Hit Points. You entirely homebrew D&D, but you're stuck. You can't figure out a day or night cycle system. I would stick with the normal world unless you have a really good reason to change it. So, and this is at least a good rule of thumb for me, unless you really want to have fun with this. So the first thing I want to mention is, unless it's important to the story, just pretend it's the real world. That's just my opinion. If you have a really cool reason to change up why it's not day or why it's not night, I'll give you an example. So we have a campaign setting called Gloam. Gloam is where this darkness has encroached in on the realm and things are very bad. It's like Flintlock fantasy, eldritch horror. It makes sense to make the days shorter and the nights longer in the world of Gloam because it fits the tone really well. Let me give you a trick that I use. I wouldn't define it. Not specifically, because there's also something about, having that air of mystery and not clearly defining statistically, because that's one more thing to track. But if you say something like, well, in my campaign world, the days are, between 22 and 24 hours, depending on how the rotation of whatever magic, whatever you want to do. But unless it serves the story or the setting super well, just leave it as normal. And if you don't like the fact that it's like, hey, well, I don't want it to be like the normal world, then just make the setting or say it's just like Game of Thrones, or it's just like, insert your favorite fantasy setting here. And then just use what they use, because unless it comes up, now it's fun to world build, and if you want to do that, but I would just recommend, as far as day or night cycle, just use whatever. I'm sure that Forgotten Realms has one. I'm sure they do. And you could probably find that in Elminster's Guide to the Forgotten Realms. But that's a great example of a book that's super fun to read, but I wouldn't really use a lot of that in my setting. It goes into detail about, like, the Forgotten Realms version of coffee, all these things that's really cool, and I'm sure Ed Greenwood just poured his heart into that stuff, but I would just call it coffee. You know what I mean? Or because, at least for me, my goal is just to have fun and play a game, I would say, yeah, and it's this stuff called, like in Dragongrin, there's iblis root. And I would say, yeah, iblis root, which is used to brew a powerful stimulant drink a lot like coffee. I just draw a parallel. Boom. This is our world's coffee. Because you're not producing a TV show, or you're not, you know what I mean? You can get away with saying, yeah, this is like a laser pointer in our world. Everybody groks it, you move forward. So anyway, hopefully that helps. But if you do want to brainstorm a cool day or night system, go on Wikipedia, find some, science articles about planets that have different day or night cycles, and then rip it off, whole cloth, because all the science is done for you. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's do here. Whoa, we got a lot of Facebook stuff going on. Let's do this. Oh, I got to go way back up. Precious Cargo. Nathaniel Tice is here. Hey, what's going on, Michael Shields? Nathan Kaplan. I have a world I started a while ago. It's pretty close to reality as we know it, but there are these things all over the world, commonly known as artifacts. The government always cautions against handling them. And there's a specific branch of the federal, state, and municipal levels to clean up and dispose of artifacts properly. Love it. I'm in. I wrote a short story about a kid who picked one up, not knowing it was an artifact, just for a gift or a school, for a school crush. It ends up giving him frost powers, and immediately his friends and family forsake him because those powers are shunned. That's fantastic. I love that. That strikes me as something. I imagined it immediately as like a really well done animated film, and that could be like stylized CG, or it could be even like old school sort of animation, but. Yeah, I love that. I want to applaud how you dialed it in. You dialed it into a very specific, hey, it's this, the artifact gives frost powers. And you said, I don't know where to take it, though. It depends what you want it to be, because there are different ways to tell the story depending on the medium you want to focus on. So, like, if it was going to be a movie, there's a specific arc size, what you can call it. If it's a TV show, there's a very specific way to do it. Dan Harmon's example of this is if you made Star Wars into a TV show, the star would be a desk clerk that works at the Death Star. And you'd never actually see, there's these micro plots that happen all the time, and that's very different. So like something like Troll Hunters on Netflix is set up for these small arcs for TV, whereas a film, such as like, Toy Story or any of these, there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and end that has a specific arc. So what are you, what are you looking to do? Are you imagining it as, or is that what you're trying to figure out? Let me know. Drake Warren says, regular world, but maybe a huge event happens like Winter's coming in Game of Thrones. That's another great way. The artifacts all activate at once. But again, the scope you decide is, I would dial it up or down depending on what I was doing. If I needed to have 24 episodes of a full arc of television, it's an artifact hunt. And we go sort of Monster of the Week style, finding these different artifacts. And, maybe they all activate, or we don't know which ones are activating next. But if it's a movie, I might even dial it way back where the government rounded up all the artifacts and destroyed them, but there's one left. And this kid finds it. That is more, to me, motion picture scope. And then you're like, okay, cool. Plot twist, there is actually another one left. Oh, no, now there's two, and the bad guy gets it, etc., etc. That's more movie arc. So, and that would even be different as far as if you wanted to do a comic book, because comic book arcs are a little different as well, and what you have to show and keep people interested in stuff. So, let me know. Oh, let's see. Enoch Newcook says, okay, here's... Oh, wait, I got to jump back to Facebook. Or YouTube, let's see. All right. Let's see. It keeps scrolling me down as soon as I click away here. Enoch says, okay, here's my issue with my writer's block. There is a civil war within a religious organization. A little less than half have become oathbreakers and joined the Frozen King, your big, bad, evil guy, wishing to purge the world of all of its evil and start over. The other half have also become oathbreakers, but they have instead turned against the other oathbreakers and the Frozen King. So what's the oath? I think that's important, because the thing that stands out to me is that all these people are oathbreakers. So before I even finish, there's conflict there, because what's the oath, and does anyone uphold the oath, and what is it? So that's important. What oath are they breaking? Because that also kind of leans into what your tone and your theme of your story is, right? So Let me know that. Now, you might say it, so I'm going to go down. The remaining paladins are hiding and looking for a way to save their comrades. So, now there are these fire and ice Oathbreakers. Each have a villain leading them, in a manner of speaking. For the fire Oathbreakers, there's a devil disguised as a human, and his warlock right-hand man, which is very cool. And then, who are training the paladins to summon and control demons? Okay, cool. So, like, building up an army of fire, which is awesome. And then for the Frost Oathbreakers, there's an Archmage and his right-hand man who are building an army of undead and constructs, like Frankenstein style. Love it. Love the theme. It's all killer so far. So how do I vary it up and make it so the players aren't constantly going from dungeon to dungeon, clearing it out, and learning more about the evil plans? So why aren't the players part of one of these factions? I think that would be the way that I would solve it. And of course, you have to have what's called a session zero, and you know about this, which is where we all sit down and go, okay, what story do we want to tell? Let's figure it out together. But to me, I'm thinking, all right, there's a lot of conflict here. There's ice, there's fire. The players shouldn't be outside of that. And if they are, maybe they're the last ones keeping the oath. You know, they're the oath keepers. There's a lot there, but how do you make it so that it's not just going from dungeon to dungeon, clearing it out? I thrust things upon the players. Every good story has what's called an inciting incident, which means it's the thing that happens that's important. Sometimes you don't have to have a reason for the inciting incident to happen. It just happens and people don't question it. Sauron makes rings of power. He just does that. That's what he does. There's no lead up. There's no information. There's these rings of power. This is what we're doing. So I think an inciting incident that pulls the players into the story. The way I would do it, because I don't know where you're at in your planning or if this is mid-campaign, if the players are on neither the Frost or the Fire side, I would talk to them and see if they want to be on either side. If they don't, then I would put them in the middle. So where are they? And it is now in between this civil war. What do I mean by that? Well, if it's the village or the town or whatever, there is a frost-fire battle right there, and it ravages the town. Now they're involved. Now they have to pick a side or choose to try to stop the rebellion altogether. So hopefully that helps. Let's see here. Enoch says, I'm not going to. Dwayne Wild says, I love the idea of an eyeball planet that's tidally locked with one side of the planet always facing the sun, the other side frozen and dark with a ring of uninhabitable space. I've always sort of loved that idea too. It's funny. I actually, one time I proposed this, and this is way back, like 2007, I emailed a professor of a local college and I said, what would happen if the world stopped rotating and one side was dark, one side was light, and then the whole middle of the planet was this ring of twilight? And he said, well, the planet would fall out of orbit. There's no way, blah, 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 blah. And so I thought, well, that is awful. But the thing that I loved most about that, the eyeball planet, was that there was this ring where it was always dusk or sunset, basically. And I always thought that would be really cool if that's where civilization lived, in that ring, because they wouldn't live on the other side because it was super parched, scorched, and hot, and they wouldn't live on the other side because it was, dark and frozen. So anyway, I think that's a super rad idea. I'm going to jump back to YouTube. All right. Heavenly Hit Point says, thanks. Actually just came up with an idea. Great tip. Awesome. That's great. Heavenly Hit Point. Well, hold on. I want to see if there's someone else has a question because I just answered one of yours, though I will answer yours next. Warmaker777. Hey, Tim. Long time no see. Nice to finally be able to catch a stream again. It is great to see you, too. Wild Picks. I really enjoy a setting that's damaged. This way, the environment becomes a character that the PCs interact with, struggle against, or battle to overcome. I completely agree. In the world of Dragongrim that we have something called Bleak Storms, and it's the Bleak. It's this roiling, huge, arcane maelstrom that's like red. It's actually pictured in the image that you're looking at. That is a Bleak Storm, and inside the Bleak Storm, there are these crazy creatures and stuff, but I totally agree. Or that's why I love post-apocalyptic movies, because there's just such a tangible, just this palpable tone. So very cool idea. And then Heavenly Hit Points did have another question. Another hard thing for me is names. Every time I think of a name for a villain or NPC or land, etc., it feels generic. Is there a good rule for name creation? Yeah, my rule is that it is difficult, but simple doesn't have to mean generic, because simple is memorable. You know, I sometimes struggle to get into certain people's worlds because they'll tell me, 7 different names with apostrophes in the middle. It's like, it's very, very, very difficult to kind of keep in my mind, keep what's straight. So I'll give you some tips for naming. The first thing is just, especially since your players, at least in my opinion, your players won't mind if it's cool. If it's a cool name, they don't care where you got it. I would jump over to, if you just type in like fantasy name generator, hold on, let me do a screen share. And I'll show you. It's this really cool website. Yeah, it's just called fantasynamegenerators.com. And this is just the easiest way to jump on here and grab a million different names. Because again, you're not publishing this stuff, right? You're just running a game for your players. So they have all kinds of things you can choose from. And then they have like different properties. So like World of Warcraft, Diablo 3. So let's click on the Diablo 3 name generator. So these are race name generators. Let's pick the Nephilim. Boom. Nethic. Kordok. Lugrasi. Or combine two. Kordok Lugrasi. Here is a name. This is the exact example of a name that I would absolutely avoid. Or I would avoid using a lot of it. Because what is Mathmoich? If the players see that in writing, they won't recognize it. You will misspell it 100 times as you go on your adventures. So anyway, fantasynamegenerators.com. And I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but it's a really cool, simple way of getting a bunch of fantasy names. You can also choose, like they have a, here, I'll show you. So I'll go back screen share. Up here in the top bar, it says pop culture. You just click pop culture and it's got tons of different things. So like Erebor, Hyborian names. So like Conan the Barbarian. So here, look at that. That is a sick name. Mercimer? Boom, there's your name. Jungle. Allegai. Repta. So in my opinion, problem solved. I would just like, boom. Yep, use it up. Let's see here. I'm going to jump back over to Facebook. No. Hey, Michael Maitland is here too as well. I'm sorry, I'm having to go back. Every time I go to a different page on Facebook, it takes me away from where I was in the chat, which I don't understand why. I think I do understand why. I think as people continue to comment, it continues to update if my mouse isn't over it. All right. Enoch says it's loosely based on the Mage versus Templars War and Dragon Age's Inquisition. Well, then I would absolutely use whatever conflicts they have, because how it plays out at your table will not be the same. And video games are so far removed, at least in my opinion, from how a tabletop role-playing game focuses and plays out. The lens you're looking through is so different. I think you'd be spot on. I don't think you'd have a problem. So I would go over to the Dragon Age Inquisition, whatever wiki, and then just use that. Use the characters, reskin the names, the places, change what you want. But that's the starting point, because they figured everything out enough to create and release a video game. So use those same things. And then that could be part of the problem, at least as well, is where in your head you're like, well, where do they go? But that's where you have to take it away from a video game. It's not a one-player situation where they're just walking through. You have to thrust it upon them a little differently than a video game. Nathan Kaplan says, Tim, that's actually fantastic advice, and I think that's the crux of my problem. Actually, possibly with a lot of my half-built campaign ideas. I wonder what resources I can find online for dialing in scope and making decisions on how to navigate the arc in tandem. So nothing beats following and just looking at how your favorite shows and TV shows do it. It's an extra watch, but look, really pay attention. So put something on that you know you love, and then follow the character beats and the overall arcs. So if you don't have time or you don't want to rewatch, also find wikis that give you episode synopses. And then you can kind of see, oh, these are the kind of things that happen. Also, choose what media you want, whether it's film, movie, whatever. There's usually quite a few articles if you type in like best movie script structure. And they'll have like 3-act structure or the Hollywood formula. There are different ones, but essentially choose your medium. I think that's key, in my opinion. Once you get past the brainstorm stage, you got to figure out what your medium is. For me, I choose that before I have the idea, or they're usually very intrinsically related. So I'm like, oh, this would be a cool show for kids. Like the stuff I'm working on with my daughter, with Tootala and Switchbee, to me, that's a children's book series. I want to eventually maybe like write and kickstart a series of books that are interesting for kids her age. But I know, okay, this is a kid's book, so it's got to have this bop, bop, bop. It's just bop, 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 bop. No, it has to have a short arc, one major point. There's no side plots, anything like that. So that's what I would try to figure out is who are you trying to reach? What do you want to do? You making a film? You making a book? Is it a novel? That sort of thing. And there's usually a lot of stuff online if you type in structure for insert medium. Enoch says they're a group of paladins. Okay, so the players are a group of paladins. My paladin is a part of the group. Are you playing a DM NPC? Or a DMPC? Are you playing a Dungeon Master player? All right. Brian Walesby says, I'm actually working on a setting where magic has been banned for a millennia due to its use in the past. How can I still make it fun to play a magic user in this setting without the usual being hunted or constant threat of imprisonment if they so much as cast a cantrip? So there's two things that I would mention immediately. The first thing is a millennia is so long ago that the cultures that exist today couldn't probably grok what was going on back then. So I would either play off of that or I would shorten it. Because look at how long ago the Roman Empire was around. And there are almost no traces of that today. So if the Roman Empire, or even like just any ancient civilization was using magic and now it's banned, we wouldn't care. We have such a new set of problems and issues. So that would be my main thing is if it was me, I would shorten that span. In Dragon Grin, we have this event that happened where the bad guys won. I did not want to make it hundreds of years. I wanted to make it so that the generation that lost is still alive. So I made it 20 years ago. And that helped a lot. It helps tremendously because there's a sense of urgency. Now, if you do want to keep it millennia ago, I would make it found secrets, something like that, and I might dial it back to centuries. Just because, again, the current people, unless it was really important, would not care what happened a millennia ago. There's no one alive, unless there are, who would be perpetuating the beliefs and what was going on back then. So I would either make it shorter or come up with a reason why it was millennia. And then, okay, so it's kind of a trick question you're asking because you're outlawing magic and then you're saying, how do I make it fun that it's not always being on the run? But that's kind of the rule you're setting. That is the social contract you're engaging with me. When you say the word outlawed, I think, okay, so if I want to be magic, I'm an outlaw. You know what I mean? So there's really, that's kind of the default. Some solutions I would have is that you can get permits. So unpermitted magic is outlawed. I think that's one way to do it. And I think that would be probably the first thing that I would do. That there's this there's a lot of red tape and there's legalities and things like that. Or you have to pay or something. Basically make it so that it's not that it's blanket illegal. It's that it comes at other costs. So, again, either money. What's always fun is cased systems. A lot of conflict there, where if you're not royal born, you can't use magic, and if you do, then you get in trouble, or things like that. So I would have other stipulations I would put on it. I wouldn't just blanket outlaw magic, if that makes sense. So hopefully that's helpful. Enoch. Okay, so his mentor is part of the normal paladins trying to save the rest. Now, okay, so there is a group of normal paladins, but I still need to know that oath. I'm going to jump over to the YouTube stream here. Let's see here. Someone's spamming the chat. I don't. That's interesting. All right, I'm going to jump back up to the top here. Invincible Heart. OMG, you taught me how to play D&D. Hey, what's going on, Invincible Heart? Welcome. This is pretty cool. Hey, thanks a lot. And, man, that's a cool feeling. I am glad that you're playing. Warmaker777, when it comes to names, something I do is take an already existing name and tweak it ever so slightly and spell it differently. For example, Zane, Z-A-Y-N instead of Z-A-N-E, or Alec, A-L-E-K-K instead of Alex. This is George R.R. Martin's favorite deal. Joffrey is Jeffrey, but he does such a good job. He tastefully does it. In his world, knights are Sir, but it's S-E-R. That does it just enough for me. Same thing with, what's Eddard instead of Edward? Just little things like that. So that's actually really good advice, and I know that it works because I look up to George R.R. Martin for the ones he's done that for. Heavenly Hit Point says, thanks for all the good advice. I'm turning 15 this year, and I'm planning to celebrate with a grand campaign with friends and family. That sounds like an incredible celebration, and happy soon birthday. Michael M. says, I like the Google Translate method. Pick a language in Google Translate and start throwing in words, i.e. brave traveler, strong heart, honest companion. This is actually a really good idea, and this can actually lend certain flavors to your campaign. So let's go. Let's do that live. So I'll show you what he's talking about, because this is a really cool way to figure out like grim sounding words. Especially like if you're looking for like Latin does a really good job of this, or like German. So I'm going to go screen share. All right, we're in Google Translate. I'm actually going to take strong heart, and let's use that as an example. This is great advice. So we'll go here. So it's detect language. The translation is English. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to strong heart. Now over here on the right, you can mess around with whatever you want to do. So let's try Bosnian just to see. And nope. There you go. Catalan. Corfort. So Corfort. Or, like I said, Latin's always a good one. Or like, now, there are things that are going to, like, if you do Japanese, it's going to give you this, but it also gives you this down at the bottom. So I don't know how to pronounce this, but if I was going to, I'd say Suyo Kokoro. Let's do another one. Polish. Makne serce. So yeah, this is a really cool way to do it, and it gives you the main thing I think that this affords you, this benefit is, anytime you have a certain kingdom, you come here and choose the same language, and then they're all going to have the same vibe. Because the last thing you want is, well, not the last thing you want, but you want to purposefully have a style of naming, at least in my opinion, so that I can tell, if someone's last name is Liechtenstein, then I know they're Germanic. So if the next person in that same line is named Baldwin, I want to know why. So this is a cool way to say, okay, cool, I'm going to come here, and then, okay, I need a character who is Brewer, which is a weird, there you go, Piwawara. So now I know that, and then etc. So yeah, that's actually really good advice, Michael. And in Warmaker 77 says that works for me for first names, and then for last name, I'll just Google Translate a word that describes a character in some way, and then again, tweak the spelling. Yeah, that's great. That's really, really good. Back to Facebook. Hey, what's going on, Nate Vanderzee? Nate Vanderzee has the most amazing YouTube channel. You have to go. It's WASD20, and just the videos get better and better. They're always entertaining. So if you have found me and somehow you have not found Nate, which is highly unlikely, you need to go to WASD20 and you need to subscribe to his YouTube channel, because I'm a genuine fan of Nate. Aside from his YouTube stuff, he's an amazing person. He is a teacher who actually teaches kids to play D&D. And so anyway, support WASD20. He also has a Patreon with really cool stuff. So consider, it's definitely I think it's a good investment, is investing in Nate. Hey, what's going on, Barker? Dude, that's awesome. Man, look at this. We got a bunch of great people here. L.A. Jackson is here. I'm scrolling up. Sean DeJazo's here. What's going on, Sean? Let's see here. Dwayne says, he's talking about the planet I was mentioning. He says, fall out of orbit. He's crazy. The moon is tidally locked to Earth. Sounds like your professor needs to update his thinking. Yeah, I honestly just kind of quit. It seemed pretty, I don't know. He was also very curmudgeonly. I don't know. Nathan Kaplan is prompt fodder. He says, unabashedly stolen from League of Legends. In a fully fleshed world, there are several nations. Some are warring with others, some are neutral and not involved. But all the nations accept and use magic as potentially, or as potently as possible, except for one nation, which is defiant against magic. Magic exists. Even part of their nobility has magic coursing through its vein, but it is cause for imprisonment and death. How does a nation like this grapple in a world with so much magic prevalence? The answer I would start with is technology. I feel like that is just, and it's classic, similar to Michael Maitland's Precious Cargo example, where it's like, oh, but it's so normal. And it's like, yeah, but it makes sense. There's a reason why those are dichotomous opposites, right? So I would make it so that while the rest of the world uses magic, they are not developing in the way that the technological race and nation is. Because think about it. If you have magic that can do things, you're not going to have skilled tradespeople as skilled. So you're not going to have innovations because the magic is doing those things for you. So I would kind of lean on making them maybe the industry leader. Maybe, and I don't know what time period you're talking about, but if we made it even industrialized, you know. And so here's what I would do. This would be the inciting incident for this story. The tech people have found essentially what would be the equivalent of an electromagnetic pulse sort of thing, where they have weapons now that can nullify magic. Not forever. It can weaken and nullify magic. How? I don't know. But it's technology. Maybe it's wacko nanotech. Maybe the secret, the dark secret, the twist is that some whisper they're actually using magic and making it look like technology just to keep up. And so then there's political intrigue and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope that works and helps. L.A. Jackson says, you mean like Tolkien? I don't remember. Grant Garrison says, Tim, how do you feel about campaigns being ripped off from pop culture references and popular movie scenarios? I love it. I'm a huge fan of it because with a little of what we call reskinning, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. It's you know, if you didn't know that I was going to do this right now and I started narrating the beginning of a movie, if you would imagine things differently as long as I painted it differently. So, well, here, I'll use a pirate movie. So there are these ships in the water and they're kind of listless. And this larger sort of dreadnought ship comes rolling up on it. And they're boarded, and this crimson garbed pirate with this crazy scars across his face begins to just walk, and he's basically looking for this pirate princess, and this pirate princess has this map, and this treasure map specifically outlines where these very important things are in the realm. And so I just bootleg described to you the beginning of A New Hope. And I reskinned Darth Vader as a pirate dressed in red and Princess Leia. And the point is, if you just take the core of it, and then you can start there. The players are also going to usually respond very differently than the script writers were thinking. So in most cases, I feel like as long as it's either unrecognizable or agreed upon, hey, we're playing Suicide Squad. I know a really good friend of mine, Matt Click. He did this campaign where he basically just did Suicide Squad, except it was this mage. And the mage put these collars around their necks and said, hey, I'm going to blow you up if you don't, help me out with this quest, etc. But he basically just did Suicide Squad. And as far as I understand, they went in knowing like, hey, you guys want to do like fantasy Suicide Squad? Because sometimes the players will know, hey, I'm in on it. And they're like, oh, cool, we're playing Suicide Squad. So it can actually be okay too. So anyway, yeah, I'm super into all of that. What? James Carney is here. What's going on? Let me know if you're ready to play some racquetball, fella. So anyway, Grant, thanks for that question. That was a phenomenal question. I'm sorry I'm way behind on these chats here. Michael Barker says, Tim, that's great advice about watching a scene specifics of something like a TV show. Pay attention to the ebbs and flows between conflict and peace, between social encounters and combat encounters, just as a couple examples. That's phenomenal advice. The other thing about a show or a TV show, if it's a good one, every scene progresses some part of the story. So no matter what, you should always pick some sort of topic in your head like, I want to focus on the fact that they are low on supplies. That's the part of the story I want to focus on. All right, now what lens do I want to use to focus on that? Oh, I'll make it so that they get robbed. Whatever, So excellent. Let me jump back to the old YouTube here. Let's see here. Hey, Nicole Davia or Davila. It's good to have you here. Wild Picks. Brittany Rucker says, how can I find groups to play with? I've tried scoping out my local game shops and Facebook groups, but I'm not finding much. Where should a beginner start? I'm a bit of an outlier here because I prefer to play online. Now, don't be freaked out by that. Don't be freaked out by that. Here's why. Just like an online dating app is going to help you find people that are exactly matched to your profile, the kind of person you are. And I know several people who they're in very successful relationships because of an online dating app. In the same way, you're not limited to the pool of just the people near you who are into D&D. So I would recommend go to Facebook and join the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. It's a Facebook group that we run. It's part of our publishing company. Go in there, explain to them, hey, Tim sent me here from YouTube, and I'm looking for a game, and will you help me? Now, I will personally commit, if you're interested, I will personally commit to answering a few questions for you to get you started. Like, well, what do I need? How would I do that? I am happy to get that set up and just kind of walk you through it. I might even do another video on it just because I know you're not the only one. But that would be my recommendation because that way you're playing with like-minded, kind people who play the exact same style of game as you and the exact same kind of system and all that stuff. It's just really, really difficult to find that geographically when you're limited by that. And so I take advantage of the fact that it's 2019 and I'm doing this live stream right now that's going out internationally, talking to people in different time zones about different things at the same time. This same interaction we're having right here, you can have playing D&D. I've got my dice tower right here. I've got my dice. So this is where I play. This is where in fact, this is the only place I play D&D. It's not the only place I would play D&D, but it's where I choose to because it's so much easier for me. My schedule and the pool of people who I can talk to is way wider. And I can also vet them out. I can look at their social media comments and see how they interact with the group. I also see people who are chosen in other games. And there are a lot of details we can go into, but that would be my suggestion. Apart from that, there are other things. There's a website called Reddit that has a specific subreddit or a group that's devoted to people finding RPG groups. And I know that there are probably also like Craigslist ads. I've seen people getting successful games, and at local gaming shops. Some people post on bulletin boards. But again, there's so much in the way of, I don't know, there's just a lot of different variables in those other examples. So I tend to just go with what I feel is safest. Oh, and then WildPick says you can also pick up a game through an online playing app called Roll20. But even hanging out in a Facebook group like AbTab will expose you to others who are playing. Be active and you'll find a game. And there you go. Back to Facebook. What's going on, Josh Glisson? L.A. Jackson says, I have a similar aspects in my own world in my Karatur-inspired setting. Shah Undala. I don't know if I did that right. Shah Undala. I have an order of royal horsemen and guards that only the citizens within the country are allowed to use fire magic. They're the only ones. And that's kind of cool. I think it's really cool. Hey, what's going on, Yvonne? Nathan Kaplan said, that dice tray sounded. I love it. I did that on purpose because I love the sound. Buddy, I'm so into that. I'm going to do it again. Oh, one bounced. I'm sorry. Nathan Kaplan says, yeah, Reddit's... so it's Reddit. Well, you just search Reddit LFG, and it's basically solely devoted for players looking for groups. So yeah, that's a really, really good question. And then let's see here. And there's a lot of really good stuff. Oh, Enoch says, this group of Oathbreakers was once a large group of paladins called the Templars of Justice. One of my players is a part of this group. Awesome. But now his organization has become corrupt and split into Fire and Frost. Okay, so it's an organization devoted to justice. So to me, I would either let the players choose. Do you want to stay in the organization of justice, like you mentioned? Do you want to join Fire or do you want to join Frost? All right, back to YouTube here. Warmaker777 says, any advice for writer's block? In the middle of writing a story, and then some things end up happening, and I'm finding it hard to get motivated to write again. In figuring out where a story goes, the very simplest answer is, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then do that. There are a lot of answers to this question, but very rarely I'll even stop writing a story because I'll realize, I took a wrong step. I took a wrong step here. I was doing a lot of research on Tolkien like a year ago, and you should see some of the early drafts for The Hobbit. It's so different. And there are a couple of times where he took a far right wrong turn and he said, this is the wrong story, and he went back. So the first thing I would ask is, what kind of story are you trying to tell? You gotta know that at least roughly. You gotta figure out what kind of story you're trying to tell, because, and I don't mean you need to figure out the theme and the foreshadowing, but you need to go, okay, cool, where's the story? You kind of go through it. From there, I think it's important that you then say, am I still telling that story? And so anyway, that would be the best way to do it, is if you are decided, hey, this is the best story, what is the worst thing that can happen that is opposite of what the characters are trying to achieve? And if you can make that happen, then it's great. So let's see here. Hey, Kubaib Hussein, what's going on? And then Warmaker says, just tweaking an already existing story and being smart with it works pretty well. A while ago, I asked a friend what his favorite movie was, and he was intentionally vague about it. Took me like 10 minutes to realize he was talking about The Lion King. There you go. Michael Maitland says, any advice getting this one shot out of a pile of ideas, encounters to a publishable product? Feel like I've got it flushed out, but have a hard time with getting a polished product. Writing adventures is exceptionally difficult. Writing adventures is really, really hard. It's not super easy because it all has to fit together. So my advice would be look at a published adventure and then see how they kind of structure it. And then just organize your ideas the same way. So you're not ripping off the adventure, but open up an adventure that you like, and then you just follow the format. I mean it. So you flip open, I don't have an adventure next to me, but you flip open and it says introduction. Now it has to be one you like, but introduction. Okay, what's my introduction? And let me give you the best advice here. Don't stop and figure out what your introduction is. Just in brackets put introduction about how the king is being robbed and his highways are unsafe. Then move to the next section. And the next section, I'm doing this all in one doc. The next section is, all right, flip the page, and it says, encounter 1 or whatever. And then I go, all right, encounter 1. And then I drop my next idea in and my next idea in. And then I go through the process of having just this super bare bones rough outline. That is half the battle. So I know it's one that I like. It's one that I would like to use. All right, cool. And all I'm doing is looking for the structure for guidance. Then when I have that, beginning, middle, and end, all the pieces, and again, I don't have to put everything perfectly. It's iterative progress. I put in brackets, you know, scene 5, big combat with all the king's knights, whatever. Now I've got that structure, and that's what I work on. Piece by piece, bit by bit. I'll take 1 week and I'll write that whole introduction and get it polished. And then I put it away. Actually, let me take a step back. I don't get it polished. I just write something, anything. Anything. And then I put it away. And then I move to the next section in my outline. And I write the first encounter. I drop my thing. It can be absolute garbage. In fact, I recommend that it's garbage. And the reason why I recommend that it's garbage is because if you write garbage today, you have something to edit tomorrow. If you write nothing today, you have nothing to edit tomorrow. You need a turd to polish, to be crass. So I would go through that whole process. And then when I have the whole thing done, I would take a break for like a week or 2. And then I would come back to it with fresh eyes, and I would repeat that process over and over again until I felt like it was ready to share. And then when it was ready to share, I would share it with some people that were close to me, and I'd run it. I'd play test it, and I'd go through there, and then I'd make final changes, and then I'd try to write and release it. So hopefully that is an answer that helps you. Let's see here. Josh Glisson, Tim Carney, do not read aloud, okay? Oh, okay, thank you for that. Laith Al-Nahar joined. Chris Wilhelm is here. What's going on, man? Laith Al-Nahar says, why is that chocobo breathing lightning? That is, it's supposed to be a monstrosity from the fires of the Bleak. It's supposed to see the tentacles. Hank was right. Runehammer was right. The teeth make the scale wrong. See, these are buildings. So this is like, this little dot would be about the size of a person. But anyway, hey, Lionel, what's going on? Jump back over to YouTube. Let's see here. And then he says, +1 on advice on how to break into online playing. Here's what you have to do to be in an online game. And I'm going to tell you exactly what the secret is. You have to go into a group like the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. You have to make meaningful comments that show that you're just a normal, well-adjusted human being socially. Because I don't know who you are unless I interact with you. And if I see you commenting, believe me, I have opinions just like you have opinions about the people in the group and what they post and how they post. I know who's positive. I know who's well-adjusted. I know who's on the level, right? And so will everyone else. So my recommendation is jump in the group and just be a part. Jump in and you have been there for years. Pretend like you've just been there for years and just start conversing with people. It's a very welcoming group. So when you go in, you just start showing that you're worth spending 4 hours with. And you're doing that until you see what's called an interest post. And then when you see that interest post, you post interest. And if you're not chosen, that's fine. If you're experienced enough, you can even run a game, right? To show, I don't know. I basically I don't want to scare you into thinking like you have to run a game to get in a game. That's not what I mean. Basically just prove that you're cool and on the level with some comments and things like that. And then eventually someone will choose you for a game. And when you do get into that game, just show up and have fun. Be there a little early. Be ready with the character sheet and just have fun. And it's totally fine. There are also tons of beginner-friendly games. And if you even post, and again, this is how you have to be careful. You don't come and go, hey, I want you to run a game for me. I'm a beginner. Don't do that. And just say, hey, if anyone's running any beginner games in the near future, please consider adding me as a player. I would love to learn the ropes of online playing. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. But truly, it's just a matter of, do you have a webcam? and usually most webcams have mics built in. That's all you need. And if you tell people you're a beginner, they'll usually be super, super, super understanding. Jarl of Goats says, here's a good question for not only Tim, but the rest of AbTab. AbTab is an amazingly supportive place if you develop your own system. Oh, thanks, man. What about other games like card games or board games? I'm not sure I understand the question. So, here's a good question. It's an amazing supportive place if you develop your own system. Are you saying if you develop your own card games or board games? Oh, nice. I'm about to go play racquetball with James soon. But let me know, Jarl of Goats, and if you can clarify. Brittany Rucker says, I would absolutely love that. I'm very serious about learning and getting into it. It's a long-time wish of mine. I'll join, with my alt account and get in contact. Thank you. Perfect. That's perfect. What you looking at? Lion King or Kimba? Talking about another comment. Warmaker says, what you looking at? Another great example of taking an already existing story. The Mappernomicon says, LMAO, you need a turd to polish. It's true. Yes, sir. Sorry, my text was limited. No problem. Jarl of Goats. Yeah, actually, so it is it's absolute tabletop, which means we do talk about tabletop games and card games. So yeah, we're always very supportive of that sort of stuff. It's absolutely allowed. The key is always, it's a system of debits and credits. If someone is always jumping online and asking, look at my thing, here's my thing, and I'm not in any way suggesting you are, but I'm just saying, be an interactive member who comments on other people's things, and then in turn people will take notice of yours. That's at least what I've learned personally through personal experience. Like and comment on a thread just like it was you asking the question, and people take note of that, and then they like and comment back on your thread. Specifically though, in taking, I guess what I mean is, I am much more likely to help someone I know than if someone jumps in the group, they don't really post that often, and their first post in a couple of months is, hey, I've made a new thing. You might get some traction on that, but be around. If you're going to be a game developer, a game designer in 2019, it's important that you interact with your audience and your community, in my opinion, because they're your friends. At least they're my friends and family. They've become my friends and family. So hopefully that makes sense. He says, awesome, because I design mostly board games and card games and would love to see if other RPG nerds like me have the same passion. Oh, absolutely. James especially loves board games. I know Barker and Matt, and as well as myself, we have some really cool outlines and things for board games and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. Caius of Glantry says, love the art. That is actually Runehammer with art direction by me. That is Uldane, a region in our upcoming book, A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. Let's see here. Barker says, prove that you're cool. Well, that rules me out. I mean cool not like, hey, I'm a cool kid. I mean cool like you're not going to, I don't know, fart into your webcam in the middle of my turn. Brandish Gilhelm is here. He actually created this art. Listen, Brandish, don't be mad. I accidentally used the wrong teeth. He was right. The art that we had, it had smaller teeth, and it made the scale just ginormous. But this, I used the wrong picture. So don't be upset. Josh Glisson says, don't play video games with people before you join a D&D game. They'll think you're super salty all the time. Josh, you are super salty all the time, though. L.A. Jackson says, thankfully, Barker cool cannot be self-appointed. It's given. Barker's one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. Chad Allen Smith is here. What's going on? What you're looking at says, Jarl of Goats. In the AbTab Discord, a lot of people have been playing Magic the Gathering Arena, and a while ago, a lot of people were playing virtual tabletop board games on Steam. Yeah, absolutely. Lloyd Collins, Jarl DM, is a huge tabletop board gamer. You're going to find that there are a ton of people in the group who love the board games. Versatile Dicecaster says, what kinds of mythologies do you especially enjoy drawing from for inspiration? More modern ones. So, I'm a huge Marvel Comics fan, which I consider a mythology. So, just because, honestly, it's like how rock came from blues. You know what I mean? all of these modern mythologies are based very heavily in old mythologies as well. So I love those sorts of things. I think George R.R. Martin does an incredible job of slightly reskinning the War of the Roses to make it just on point. He has this series. I can't remember what the series is called, but I know it has like the Hedge Knight, the Mystery Knight. It's these 3 books that they're prequels to Game of Thrones, and they're some of my favorite books. So I love George R.R. Martin stuff. And I don't mind the HBO stuff at all. I think it's great, but specifically the way he writes and the sort of way he weaves things in and out. Excuse me. Yeah, I think that those, I honestly draw from a lot of modern mythologies. Anime, there are some incredible animes. So on that angle, I think, like I said, a lot of those draw from old mythologies, but for me, I will also merge the 2 ideas, but I don't really draw from a lot of older mythologies. I also, real world history. So, it's not really mythology per se, but picking eras like the 40s, the 30s and 40s, and sort of what society was like in the wars that we went through and those sorts of things. I find that very, very interesting because a mythology to me is when you say mythology, I think about the big deities. And to me, the most interesting thing is more like the ground level cultures and what's happening and the people and stuff like that. So hopefully that answers the question. But those are the mythologies that I would say I draw from more. You know what? This is kind of a sideways answer, but I love like the mythologies of bands. Trivium has what I would consider a mythology. If you look at their album progression and the art and the different pieces and the styles and the shifts and stuff like that, like Silence in the Snow is more like an Iron Maiden album by Trivium, the soul of it, hear me, versus Shogun, which is like just this super heavy riffy, but look at the album art, look at the lyrics, the names of the songs. That's a mythology. I draw from that stuff more than I think classical sort of carved in stone like Roman or Egyptian and those sorts of things. So hopefully that makes sense. Jump over to Facebook here. Brandish says, wrong teeth. It's true, man. I botched. I did a botched job on the teeth. Michael Barker says, if a guy in a heist movie says, no, dude, don't worry about me, I'm cool, they're not cool. It's so true. They're the ones who are going to absolutely freak out. It's like, cut to the scene. The heist went totally awry. And the sort of side henchman, who's a little surly but like likable, crawls into the car, like Reservoir Dog style, bleeding, pale, clutching a gut wound, and says like, okay, I need you to drive. That's when the person who said, no, I'm cool, is like sitting pale in the driver's seat, freaking out in shock. Chad Allen Smith says, is this the cool platform to follow on? I don't know. What's your jam? What's your flavor? What's going on, by the way? Josh Cousins says, have you ever taken a song and made it into an adventure? Absolutely. I have a particular song in mind that I haven't converted yet, Rainbow Stargazer. So I actually have done this. James and I actually wrote a series of short stories before Tabletop Terrors, before we were even into RPGs big, called Song Inc. And they were based off of songs that we liked. And I think that's a really cool way to do it. James ran a one-shot based on a song called The Chair Kickers, I believe. So, yeah, I absolutely love to do that because the other cool thing about drawing inspiration from songs, not only can you pull from them and use the lyrics and all that, but you can actually even use the structure. And hear me out. The intro to a song. Is it slow? Is it brutal? That's how I'm going to decide, well, what's the intro to this adventure? The bridge, the chorus. Like I would even go the meta and say like the actual structure of the song. Use that as kind of the structure to where you ratchet up the tension or bring it down. In addition to that, I think there's also, I can listen to a song right now, and then in 6 months, listen to it again. Totally different context, totally different adventure. So yes, +1 to that. Nathaniel Tice. Hey, Abtab, missed you guys. I missed you too, man. Great material and ideas as always. My daily dose of inspiration. That means a lot. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon because I'm going to go play racquetball with James. But Nathan Kaplan. Trivium. I was infarction. I was literally listening to Dying in Your Arms right before this live stream started. I've been cranking Shogun because I'm going to let me tell you, James, this is the funniest thing I've heard. Trivium released a new song super recently. Today, maybe yesterday. It's called Pillar of Serpents. And so we're talking about it. We have a Facebook chat. And Matt Click and I were just talking, because we're huge Trivium fans. He says, James says, oh, dang, I think I'm one behind. I'm way back there on Wana Mahacha Kitsugi. And then he goes, Hero to Gogu Scream and Say. Oh, that's so good for me. What he really meant was Kurosute Gomen. But that absolutely just destroyed me when he said that. But yes, I was having a Shogun day because James mentioned it. I also was listening to Pillar of Serpents to kind of... It's pretty aggressive and it's not super catchy, but it's real riffy. So I'm trying to get it in my head so that I crave it. Michael Barker says, Josh Glisson, copy of by 9 Inch Nails started the creative process for Winds of Sur Saline. That's really killer to know. I'm going to jump over to YouTube, answer a couple more questions, and then go from there. Oh, wow. You got some. Michael Maitland says, board game idea. Just did a round of Zombicide last night. Also played Above and Beyond a few weeks ago. Would love to mash up Zombicide plus Above and Beyond encounters plus D&D character progression. I don't really know. I've seen the covers of the games you're mentioning, but I don't really know the situation with either one of them specifically. Dr. Fart says, my butt makes noises. It's poignant. The Necronomicon then laughed his own butt off, according to his comment. And then Dr. Fart says, and I mean this, I've got a noisy butt. A noisy butt. Anyway, Versatile Diecaster, what homebrew monsters are you the most proud of, and why are those the ones? Pretty proud of a dragon we came out with called Zerkith, and he's for the upcoming book, A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrim, but we released it for free on our website, and it was, instead of breathing a standard breath weapon, it actually breathes the bleak, but it disincorporates you from reality and puts you into the bleak. It's really gnarly, as well as some other effects that it has. Pretty proud of Zerkith. Was very happy with... there are some that we didn't release yet, but we released... If you look in the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, I did a post about the Death Maw. Pretty rad stat block for the Death Maw. It's this creature that has all these different mouths. It's like a mouth beholder, basically. It has all these different mouths, and each one has different effects. Like it's speaking to you in different ways. And Matt Click actually formally wrote it out, but he did such a good job. Mappernomicon says, I have a Paisley dragon. It breathes Nagchampa. That is so rad. I love that. All right, couple more comments. Josh Glisson says, I always wanted to make an entire hard rock heavy metal campaign setting. No, not Brutal Legend. Fair point. But like there's a man in the Silver Mountain, a priest named Judas. Oh, that's actually really clever. That's great. And then Nathan was replying to Michael, and he says, the process used for Sur Saline, where you gave James that Glitch Mob song, if I recall correctly, to write a story to, was one of the most influential things I've borrowed as a DM. Nathan Kaplan says, Mouth Beholder? Sounds like my prom date. Oh, God. Here, I'll actually share it on stream. I just go to... We released it in a backer update. So if I just go to Kickstarter, this will be the last thing I do, then I'll wrap it up. But if we go to Kickstarter and then A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrim, this is art by Alexander Kostic. I came up with the concept, and then the stat block itself was from Matt Click. He wrote the stats out, and he just, as always, destroyed it. Here we go. And screen share. There it is. That's the Death Maw by Alexander Kostic. And so this goes into, to us, this is an homage. A Beholder is a fully copyrighted D&D 5th edition situation. So homage, pastiche, whatever you want to call it. I was like, what would sort of like the same vibe be, but totally different in Dragongrin? And so we came up with this. It's called a Deathmaw. And each one of these mouths whisper or speak different things. The stat block is finished. I don't want to share it just yet, but I think it was cool because people picked up on the Beholder vibes, but they also were like, oh, but this is really terrifying and unique. It didn't just look like a ripoff. And so one of the things that we were most pleased with is just how it can be different, but still be like, oh, cool. But the two people said, without me saying, oh, this is like a Beholder, two people said, oh man, I want to use this in my game instead of a Beholder. And I thought, that's cool to me. So anyway, I guess that's where we will wrap it up. Thank you. Mambernomica says, pastiche, aptly put. Let's see here. That thing is bonkers. Oh, thanks. Much appreciated. And then Barker says, dude, awesome. I'm very musically inclined, so it's fun to use that as a creative device. Yeah, Barker is not just musically inclined. He is musically gifted. He's a musician as well, and I have the pleasure of hearing some of his songs. I was able to actually design some logos for one of his bands called Mason Lake. But he shared a song in one of our AbTab WhatsApps that I listen to like every few days. I'm like, yeah, time to go back to that. Anyway, love you guys. I guess I'll do it with water. I'm about to go play racquetball. I'm not going to drink an energy drink. But may you mend the first break. May you kill the first snake. And may you conquer everything you undertake. Sláinte. And until next time, this one's just for you, Nathan Kaplan. Nate said, next, give us the ear Beholder. That'll be much harder to make terrifying. Unless it's an old man and there's a bunch of ear here. Until next time, may your dice roll